It is the first model introduced in the ZOIDS Genesis collaboration of 2026, sporting the likeness of the iconic Liger-style speed design used in that series. This is ZGS00 Murasame L, with a kit of Quick Sword, Range Claw, Range Pile, Biped Legs, and a brand new leg ability of Sonic Move, which buffs mobility if not attacked while in heating. Now, over the course of the ZOIDS collaborations, and might I even say all of the ZOIDS collaborations, we've seen the Liger used in several different orientations and styles, from the original to the Wild Zero, to all the different types between Fusors and New Century with Liger Zero. Murasame is most certainly no exception to adding yet another distinct style and take to how popular and how versatile the Liger model can indeed choose to be through the entirety of ZOIDS universe as a whole. Quick Sword on the head part is a brand new ability being introduced into Medarot S. It is a melee skill that, much like a lot of other skills such as Hard Hammer or Hard Pile with Resist, or Sway Hammer and Sway Claw with Evade, Quick Sword adds one of the user's leg stats to its power when attacking, and, as the name would imply, this one applies the user's mobility stat when attacking. So, in short, it's kind of obvious to tell, the faster you are, the stronger this gets. But that's not the end of it either. Quick Sword also ignores defense when attacking, and if it pierces when attacking the target, deals an additional 50% damage on top of that. So not only is this a very good move you could start a fight with and leave a very lasting impression, but this is also one that you can use midway through the fight or even as a finisher and not have to worry on how you use it, because it's going to be extraordinarily powerful no matter how you use it or when. And like I said, the faster you are, the more potent it becomes. And when you pair it off with a very impressive mobility of 950, which I will get to in just a little bit here, that already is going to be an extraordinarily powerful attack right out of the gate before any other modifiers get added in. Range Claw on the right arm is a melee skill that has a really interesting condition in that it changes its modifier depending on how close or far away the target is from Murasame Liger. If the target is close range or as close to the command line as you can get with Murasame Liger, the attack becomes more powerful and gets damage plus. But the farther away the target is from Murasame Liger, it instead gets a success boost, which makes it more likely to land and more likely to land a critical hit. But that's not all either. Range Claw also deals a guaranteed critical hit, period, if you attack an enemy while in cooldown. So not only can you use this at basically any point of the fight and have fairly successful and consistent performance, but stabbing an opponent in the back is also openly encouraged with how Murasame Liger chooses to use Range Claw. Range Pile, on the other hand, is another melee skill that has a dual condition relative to the target's proximity to Murasame Liger. In that vein, if it attacks an enemy that is close to Murasame Liger, so the closer to the command line it is more powerful with damage plus and gains the AoE effect, which means it will damage all the parts equally and spread the damage across them. However, the farther away the target is from Murasame Liger, it instead gets Success Plus, more likely to land and to crit, and gains Piercing instead. This makes it extraordinarily consistent no matter how you choose to use it or at what range you choose to use it. So just between these three attacks alone, Murasame L is a very consistent and very user-friendly model you can use at any range, close or far, and he's going to have a very consistent performance no matter what. Biped Legs means that Murasame Liger will have fairly decent coverage across all terrains and pretty decent terrain compatibility at that. But ultimately, that's not the big highlight to what Murasame Liger brings to the table. A base mobility, like I said, of 950 is a very impressive start when it comes to biped legs, so even before any kind of modifiers are added such as terrain or Medarot bonus, he's already going to be zipping across the field pretty easily. He also has a pretty solid evade at 1522, so he doesn't have to worry too much on having to dodge or graze unless he's in a no dodge or no defense state. However, he is a little lighter on the armor at a 901 for his melee resist and an 822 for his shoot resist. So this ultimately means, while he is fast and fairly agile, you want to try to keep him that way as often as possible, because if he starts taking hits, it's going to start getting kind of painful. In the armor department, he's packing an impressive 4,500 for the head, just barely, 3,479 per arm, and almost 3,900 for the legs. So in comparison to most other Ligers that we've seen through the 2026 ZOIDS collab, he is a little bit lighter on the armor. But given that his sole focus is speed and agility, I guess that's kind of a fair trade-off. Plus, Sonic Move means that if he's not already going fast before, he's definitely going to be going fast after his first turn if he's not touched. So that means it's going to be very heavily reliant on you actually having a shielder or somebody to keep him protected at all times, because the faster he moves, the more powerful Quicksword ends up becoming to either stab through enemy defenses or finish anyone that might be in his way. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate Murasame Liger a pretty well-balanced 7 out of 10 across the board. He's got some good numbers despite the fact he is fairly light in the resist department and just a little lighter in the armor department, but he definitely makes up for it with the high mobility of his legs, his leg ability, and quick sword on top of that, and the fact that his heating and cooling is in the high 600s to low 700s across everything. Even his head is in the high 700s to high 800s, so speed is definitely not going to be a problem for Murasame Liger. However, because of the light armor, it does mean that he can get picked off pretty easily by anything that can sure hit him. So a word of advice is encouraged of being able to make sure that you can keep him protected at all times. Essentially, go in with a shielder and make sure that nothing touches Murasame Liger as long as he remains alive on the field. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him equally at a 7 out of 10 for these same reasons. While Quick Sword does kind of imply that you're going to be using anything with a high mobility leg anyway, and kind of implying you're already going to use his head and legs together as a combo, that's not exactly the mandatory requirement here. You can always use Quick Sword with any kind of high speed leg and still get a pretty solid effect, and the legs by themselves are extremely versatile as long as you stay untouched. That extra plus 300, I believe the passive was, is going to be extremely noticeable once that first turn hits. And Range Claw and Range Pile, their consistent performance means you can use either of them anywhere and not have to worry on a drop in performance, no matter if you attack somebody that's far away from you or right up in the middle of your face.